Hello, coming at you from sunny California. I have just a quick run through that I want to do today with you on this idea of the GEM hormone case studies. So this is something we'll be diving into in the months to come. I'm hoping it's something I kind of just keep coming back to and using to better help you to understand your own hormone levels and how it all like plays into real life. Because I think sometimes there's like a very different aspect of what is the science portion of it and what is practical and applicable to you right now. Um, so whether you have had your hormones tested or not, I know we talked about that a couple of emails back, and I encourage you to get your hormone levels checked professionally. If you chose not to do that, you will still be able to pull from all of the examples I'm going to give. But I do encourage you to consider down the road getting them tested. And you can, of course, message me if you want more advice on how to go about doing that. I know it can be a little bit tricky to navigate getting your hormones professionally tested. So with that in mind, I'm going to be going through what I am calling the hormonal GEM case studies. And we're going to keep adding to these. I'm just doing the 5 primary types right now. And you might find that you relate with one, or maybe you relate with multiple, or maybe you don't relate with any of them. I think you will at least relate with some of them a little bit. Here's how this works. Basically, each of the types have a primary hormonal imbalance that it causes them to have certain symptoms, or as we call them, signals of a hormonal imbalance telling you that something else is off. And it can manifest itself in many different ways. So we're going to talk about some of the ways that those hormonal imbalances can manifest themselves in your mental health, your physical health, emotional well-being, everything related to your overall wellness. Now, the thing is we are very complex human beings. And so typically you are not going to have just one. You might relate with one particular type more than another, but you might also have some imbalances going on that points you towards another type as well. It is very common for you to have more than one of these types be kind of where you're at, because oftentimes, as we've discussed before, when you have a hormonal imbalance, that is like one hormone is never the only thing that's out of proportion to what it should be. If one hormone is off of its normal level, that means that at least one, oftentimes many others, are going to not be where they should be for your body to function optimally. So keeping that in mind, I don't want you to just type yourself and say, oh, okay, this is the only type I am. Nothing else applies to me. You can still glean a lot from everything that I'm going to share about each of these types. But I want this to be fun. I think it'll be a great way for you to kind of understand how this actually all works in a practical sense, rather than just, oh, you're high in estrogen, or, you're high in testosterone, but being able to see what that really looks like from a day-to-day living basis. What things could it be impacting or causing that hormonal imbalance, and what things could help balance it out the other direction. We're not going to dive into the details of every single one on both ends of those spectrums, like the diagnosis and understanding what the root cause are, and how to heal yourself or support your hormones the best. But we will get to a lot of that in the weeks and months to come. So this is just an introduction. Hopefully, in going through this, you can kind of pinpoint, okay, I think I'm right here, but I'm going to compare that with my hormonal professional testing and see where that comes in at. And if you're really not sure, but you think you kind of are noticing some similarities, feel free to message me, email me back to this email, and I would be more than happy to kind of give you some guidance on what could possibly be your type or your hormonal imbalance that's going on. Of course, I can't fully give you all of the information unless we were to sit down and really talk about it, because as I said before, you are a complex person, and I don't want to give you false information by generalizing things. So no, that's my biggest fear in like giving these types. I don't want you to just generalize and say, oh, it must be this because I'm suffering from, headaches or PMS or whatever your symptoms are. There is so many options of what could be causing those imbalances or, those symptoms. So I want to give you as full of a spectrum of a picture to go off of as possible, so that then you can zone in and see might be the issue. Let's take a look at it deeper and figure out if that's really the problem or not. Okay, all of that up front. I just wanted to share, in case you're wondering, like, what's going on in the background here. I'm in California. I'm living in this Airstream right here with my friend Jolene, and she's moving to Georgia. So I'm actually traveling with her for a couple of weeks, living in Oregon and California. And then I'm going to be flying out to Hawaii next week when we get down to San Diego. So that was a little life update on me. But hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I'm recording. There's like some roads and things around here, but we have a lake over that direction. It's a beautiful place to be. Okay, I'm going to share my screen here. And if you want to dive deeper into this in a visual component, you are more than welcome to take a look at my Instagram post on this, introducing the hormonal gem case studies. But I'm just going to kind of introduce them to you. So there's 5 that we're going to talk about this week. And the first one is Amber. So Amber is known, her primary imbalance, it doesn't mean she doesn't suffer from others, but her primary hormonal imbalance is that she has low progesterone. So I've tried to create characters that can really give you a picture just of the complexity of everything that could be involved in getting an official diagnosis and in knowing how to go from that diagnosis in, supporting your hormones the best you can. So each of these characters have a story, and it just kind of helps me give you a better picture of what this could look like in their real life. So Amber, she's a 30-something hairstylist and a makeup artist who is obsessed with all of the smell good lotions and perfumes. I've definitely been there. I don't know about you. Loves what she does, but what she does is often a very fast-paced and stressful environment. She's been on hormonal birth control or the pill since she was in her early teens to help ease her PMS and PMDD. If you know what that is, that's premenstrual syndrome or premenstrual dysmorphic disorder. Sorry, my words are hard today. Also menstrual migraines, having menstrual flow, and irregular or frequent menstrual cycles. She has been off of the pill for a while now, and many of her symptoms have worsened. She also has consistent bloating in her abdomen and painful and swollen breasts. She and her husband, Jasper, are eager to start their family, but she is having difficulty getting pregnant and carrying to term. So if any of those things that I just listed off, any of those symptoms are relatable with you, maybe her lifestyle or the symptoms that she is experiencing, it doesn't mean that all of them have to be applicable to you. And she may be in a different phase of her life, as far as wanting to start a family or whatnot. But if you can relate with anything that I read, you may be an Amber type. So keep that in mind as we go through. I will be using Amber to be kind of going through some common topics. So whenever I'm talking on a specific topic, I'm going to, like in my Instagram posts, in our topics that we discussed over the emails, I'm going to be referring to Amber's story. And some of the topics that I'm going to be using Amber for are when I talk about female fertility and infertility, especially after coming off of hormonal birth control. I'm also going to use her to talk about pregnancy, healthy postpartum, and something we call xenoestrogens, which are specifically found in personal care products in Amber's situation. I'm also going to use her to discuss effects of stress on specific hormones, PMS and PMDD, as well as period regulation. I'm also going to use her for birth control awareness and education. So we're going to be talking about quite a bit of that, I believe, in like a month or a month and a half-ish. We'll also use her husband, Jasper, when we discuss the male hormonal cycle, because yes, believe it or not, men also have a hormonal cycle. We'll talk more about that in weeks to come, but did you know that men actually have a hormonal cycle that is 24 hours versus the female cycle that is typically around 28 days? Okay. And we'll use Jasper also to talk about male fertility and infertility as well. Okay, our second type that we're going to talk about is Amethyst. So Amethyst is known for being high in estrogen and low in cortisol. This is one of those common combos that I talk about in my post from this past week. But Amethyst she's in her early 40s and experiencing symptoms of early menopause. It doesn't mean that you have to be experiencing early signs of menopause or in your early 40s to be an Amethyst type, but typically this is relatable with a lot of women who are in that phase of life. So you could be younger as well. Okay, she works as a housekeeper, working with cleaning products on a daily basis, has had difficult and has had difficult and emotionally abusive relationships for the majority of her adult life. Alcohol has become a primary coping mechanism, and PMS, heavy bleeding, breast tenderness and cysts, fibroids, endometriosis, menstrual migraines, and mid-cycle or ovulatory pain have been frequent for most of her life. She carries what we consider a muffin top weight, which is that area in your midsection that she just can't seem to shed. She faces depression, weepiness, moodiness, and frequent meltdowns. They've always been an issue for her, and recently she has had an increase in brain fog, or not being able to think as clearly, having a hard time remembering simple things, getting distracted easily, those sorts of effects. So Amethyst is someone we're going to be using to talk about the causes and signs of early menopause, as well as xenoestrogens that I mentioned from Amber, but we're going to be focusing more on the xenoestrogens that are found specifically in household cleaners. We're also going to talk about the effect of abusive relationships and toxic stress on your hormones, as well as the effects of excess alcohol consumption on the endocrine system. We're going to talk about endometriosis, the muffin top that I mentioned, and why you might be facing that, extreme mood swings and emotional dysregulation, as well as brain fog. So a lot of these are things that you may struggle with. And so even if you aren't, in your early 40s or experiencing early signs of menopause, it doesn't mean that if you're not having some of these other issues, you couldn't be that way in 10, 15, 20 years from now, depending on your age, because a lot of these are symptoms that Amethyst was struggling with a lot of these same issues early on in her life too, and now they're just kind of coming to an extreme point where she really has no other option but to face them. Okay, and I like this type because it gives us the opportunity to talk about some really important things like stress and like the importance of healthy relationships. And just, I wanted to show you guys like how many factors there really are to what could be causing your particular hormonal imbalances. Our third type is Sapphire. So Sapphire is known for having low estrogen. She's an extremely active athlete, determined to be the champion on the court and in her college degree. Sometimes her goals lead her to take extreme measures, and she finds herself restricting calories, labeling foods as good versus bad, and spending hours in the gym every day over exercising. She's been on the pill, birth control, hormonal birth control since early high school to regulate her sporadic or absent periods. Lately, she's been noticing more negative symptoms and wants to understand why she is experiencing them. She has issues with joint pain, dry skin and eyes, depression, and sun damage or brown spots on her skin. She has poor cognitive function, and she gets night sweats and hot flashes, which is something pretty unregular or, should be uncommon for a girl of her age. Low sex drive, painful sex, and vaginal dryness. So lots of issues going on here for sure. We're going to be using Sapphire to talk about the importance of looking at eating disorders, dieting and fad workouts, or going to extremes and what that can do for your hormone regulation. We're also going to be using Sapphire to talk about irregular periods, specifically oligomenorrhea and amenorrhea. We're also going to be using her to talk about joint pain causes from a hormonal perspective, as well as dry skin and eyes, spotting on skin, poor cognitive function, painful sex and vaginal dryness, managing stress, and fast-paced lifestyle, especially for those of you who are in your college years. So we'll talk about the overall of just fast-paced lifestyle in general. That's a really key component of my business, is that I love to talk about the value of a slow, intentional lifestyle and what good that is for your body and your overall well-being. So we're going to specifically talk about that in Sapphire's case with her college life and being a young person and just being pulled in every which direction and how to manage that and why to manage that because it's very important when it comes to your hormonal health. Okay, our fourth type, I believe we're on, our fourth type is Jade. So Jade is known for having excess androgens and high cortisol. So this is your type A personality. She's a total, as we would say nowadays, a boss babe. She's got a pretty good grip on what's up with her hormones since being diagnosed with PCOS. She's had to learn a lot because of having that diagnosis. There's a lot of things that are different for her in having that. It doesn't mean that to be a Jade type, you have to have PCOS, but you may have some of these other symptoms that go along with that as well. Okay, she has known for a while that her DHEA and testosterone levels are high and is on a hormonal birth control to manage symptoms, which has introduced synthetic progestin, which is an androgen-like, has androgen-like effects. And this can cause things such as hair loss. So what she doesn't know is that she has increased her insulin levels, and that has increased the production of testosterone in her ovaries. And high cortisol means that her adrenals are all out of whack. So her blood sugar is unstable. She has either hypo or hyperglycemia, has infrequent ovulation, meaning her cycle is longer than 35 days. She suffers from ovarian cysts and mid-cycle pain, and she's tried every ointment and DIY for oily acne skin, experiences hair loss on the head, and has been noticing increasing hair growth on her face and chest. And she just can't seem to shed that extra weight in her midsection, kind of that muffin top that we were talking about earlier. So there's a lot of frustration in Jade's case. She has been probably looking into her hormonal health for quite some time because her symptoms are so extreme, knowing that that's probably the case for the majority of the symptoms that she experiences, but not always having the answers on what she can do. This is very common with women who face symptom diagnoses such as PCOS, because it seems like a very definitive diagnosis that, oh, this is just what you have. When in reality, there's a lot we can do to help alleviate those symptoms. Even if you don't have as extreme as PCOS diagnosis, you may experience some of the same symptoms that a Jade type would. You don't necessarily have to have PCOS. So we're going to be using Jade to talk about navigating PCOS, what to do once you've had a diagnosis with that, or how to go about getting diagnosed with it if you think that might be a cause for your issues. Also, we'll use her to talk about navigating hormonal birth control and the effects of progestin. We'll use her for adrenal dysfunction and elevated cortisol levels and their effect on the rest of your hormones, as well as the masculine hormones and their impact on physical and mental function. We'll also use her to talk about blood sugar regulation and the importance of that, acne and oily skin and how to treat it, and abnormal hair loss and growth. I'm really excited about Jade. I think that she's a very common type, especially for many of you who are in my community. I know I have a lot of boss babes, as we would say, whether you run your own business or you are just living a very fast-paced lifestyle. This is something that really you probably can relate with a lot of these symptoms, and a big cause for it can be the stress of always being on the go. So we'll be sure to talk more about that in the weeks to come. Okay, our fifth and final type we're going to discuss today is Opal. And Opal is known for having low androgens, which are those masculinity hormones. She's steady in her career, but she's looking forward to retirement. She's in her late 40s to 50s. It doesn't mean you have to be within this age range, but typically Opals are going to be within kind of this time frame here. She's always considered herself to prioritize her health by eating nutritiously and being active each day. She hasn't had many signs of hormonal imbalances until the past couple of years. Opal has been recently experiencing decreased muscle mass, a lack of motivation, and has been questioning her sense of personal purpose. She suddenly feels like she has lost her spice, her youth, her edge, and her confidence. She also has low libido, experiences painful sex and less powerful orgasms, and frequently has vaginal dryness. So also a lot going on there. We're going to be using Opal to talk about menopause and perimenopause, lack of motivation, confidence, and purpose. These are also, you can be an Opal in a sense, even if you're not within that age group of facing menopause and perimenopause, because you may still have low androgens. Typically, this is going to be found in combination with another type as well if you are not in that menopause, perimenopause phase, because there's another reason that your androgen levels are low, meaning that you have another hormone that's probably out of balance, causing the low androgens to be what we consider a secondary imbalance. So there's a primary imbalance that's probably causing your androgen levels to be low if you are not going through menopause or perimenopause. Okay, we're also going to be using Opal to talk about painful and unsatisfying sex, decreased energy levels, and lifestyle shifts for women with low androgen. So what you can do to help boost that and to directly impact your androgen levels in a healthy way. Okay, so this is, I'm going to stop the share here. Those are the 5 types that I wanted to discuss with you today, just to kind of give you a general glimpse into each of these types, each of these women. I'm super curious to know if you automatically just related with any of them in particular, or if there's a couple that you're like, oh, I think I might be this type, or maybe both of them. Please message me. I love to hear from you and to be able to encourage you in finding what this all looks like for you and putting it into practice. Next week, we're going to be talking a bit about Jade and perhaps some other types, we will see, but talking about adrenal function. So I did want to mention briefly before I just end this out is that there are other hormonal imbalances that occur, specifically thyroid imbalances. We are not really discussing those with these 5 types, but down the road in a month or 2, I will bring up topics of thyroid imbalances, and a lot of what you can do for these different types can be beneficial for you if you have thyroid imbalances. But if you, thyroid imbalances are kind of a whole world of their own. So I want to make sure that I'm not confusing them with any of these other issues, because they really do have their own whole set of criteria that we need to follow. But that doesn't mean that all of this wouldn't be beneficial. A lot of what I'm going to be suggesting for balancing your hormones in a natural way is going to be through lifestyle change and through your diet and through, having a healthy amount of activity. So you will benefit from anything that I'm sharing, but some of the more specific things, you will want to be aware that if you have a thyroid imbalance, that is something you're keeping at the forefront of your mind and you're being aware of before you make any major lifestyle shifts or changes. Okay, I think that that's about it. I hope that this was interesting for you. I can't wait to share more about these case studies and to use them to connect with you on being able to make changes in your life and just to be more aware of what's impacting your hormonal levels, from the way that you eat to the way that you move your body to the kind of products that you're putting on your skin. There's so many factors, even including your relationships and how you're managing your stress. So we have so much to talk about. I'm literally just like bursting to tell you everything, but I just wanted to introduce these types so you can start paying attention and looking at what factors in your life might be influencing your hormonal balance and imbalance, and to find what type you might be so that we can start from somewhere, because we can't make any change until we know where we're starting. All right, I will see you next week as I talk more about hormonal health, specifically how to support your adrenals.